Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Lipedema channel here on YouTube and on the Lymphopress.com website. We love sharing the stories of people who are managing their lipedema effectively, and we always find inspiration in their stories, their journey that led them first to a diagnosis and then to get the help that they need. We're delighted to welcome a friend who I've known just by name only for quite some time now. Her name is Carol Moody. She shows up to our roundtables. She has a Lymphopress, and now she has a platform to tell her story. Carol, it's so good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So how did you ever find us, the roundtables and our conversation about lipedema?
Well, I think I found the round table through Patricia Ashton Cornude and the Lipedema Fitness Facebook group originally. And I'm trying to think where I heard about Lymphopress the first time. I think, again, it was just different people talking about it on Facebook.
Yeah. So I love the power of these social groups because you really feel like you're not alone. And Patty Cornute, she's awesome.
Yes.
So I want to go back and say, when was the first time you noticed that there was something different, that, maybe you compared your legs to someone else's when you were a child? Or when did you first notice that there was something, perhaps before you had a diagnosis?
Well, when I go back and look at pictures now, I can see that as young as 3 years old, I had the lipedema shape. I had the smaller top and the larger lower half of my body. But there was a picture of myself and several childhood girlfriends and some who even lived in my apartment building. We were all lined up on the street in front of the building, and I looked so different from them. And I was in grade school, maybe junior high. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I could see the stark difference in that picture. And I know I always felt different, back in school when we had physical education and swimming, we had to take showers all in one big shower room. So I could tell then, and I was embarrassed, but that my body was made different than the other girls.
So did you try to address it in some way, or did you just say, well, this is just the way I am? Some women tend to go overboard and they almost hurt themselves through diet and exercise, trying to change their shape.
I think I did some of both. I worked really, really hard in physical exercise. My mother had lipedema and lymphedema also. Of course, we didn't know at the time, but she wasn't very active. And I worked really hard to try to excel in physical education and in different areas. But I always had a harder time. And I struggled with weight loss. When I was going into puberty around age 12, my weight skyrocketed. I remember in a year's time, I went from like 93 pounds to 154, and I wasn't doing anything different. I was active and I was eating normal. I don't know how healthy, but it was normal. I wasn't overeating or anything. And the pediatrician told my parents that they wanted to put me on an American Diabetic Association exchange diet. And so they put me on this strict diet at the time, and I didn't lose any weight. In fact, I gained weight. So no, we had no clue what was wrong. And even when I was 19, I went to an orthopedist for the first time, and they said I had some pretty serious arthritis for somebody, osteoarthritis for somebody of my age. And of course, as you know, lipedema grows in such a way that it really impairs the knee joint on the inner knee. And so it early on, it led to some pretty debilitating arthritis for me. But I kept on. I kept trying. It got worse over time, and it got to there's a lot of things that led up to this, but it got to the point that I actually had to quit working. And my arthritis got to the point that it did affect my ability to do my particular job. And as well as other things. So I have worked really hard to try to stay mobile. And I do appreciate the Lipedema fitness list and the other things I'm involved with for exercise. But I have seen Dr. Herbst, but at the time she told me that I could be bedridden. I at this particular point in time, we can kind of go backwards again, but I have full body. I'm lipedema stage 3 and lymphedema stage 2. And I was determined to do absolutely everything that I could not to become bedridden. And at this point, I use a rollator walker. But I'll never forget when I called to make my first appointment with Dr. Herbst, which, by the way, I had to wait 14 months for at a time that my lipedema was really advancing. And one of the first questions they asked me on the phone is, "Are you in a wheelchair yet?" And I thought, "Yet?" And I'm like, "No, but I am on a walker." So that wake up call, that red pill moment really emphasized to me that I had to do absolutely everything I could to try to stabilize this beyond what other interventions there might be.
Carol, I am so inspired by your resilience and the fight in you that said, "I will not give up." There are some people that might have taken that message and just waved the white flag and said, "Oh, well, that's my fate." So when did you have that visit and that wake up call? When was that in your journey?
Well, that was, well, let me back up. Well, first, let me say that I think one thing that's helped with my resilience, besides my faith in God, is that I am legally blind and I have had to deal with disability throughout my life. And I've always had to work harder at things in order to be successful. And I was also, my last job, I was an itinerant rehabilitation teacher for the blind for the state of Missouri. And I had to teach newly blinded people all sorts of alternative techniques in order for them to regain and maintain their independence. So I've had a mindset all along of finding other ways of doing things, finding a way to get around things. So I guess when things really started to get worse for me was back in 2014. And I was moving, I guess, at that point from stage 2 to stage 3. It started out for me, I noticed some swelling, but I didn't know what it was. But I wound up having a severe bout with cellulitis.
Oh,
In
no.
fact, I was in the hospital for 5 days and it was life-threatening. I was going septic. And after my hospitalization, which, I'm sure that I probably got the cellulitis partly because my lymphatic system was compromised, but then also it probably contributed to making it worse because in October of 15, my body was just like completely filled up with fluid. My legs were out to here and my stomach was up to here and it was right up under my heart. It was frightening. So I went to the doctor and she says, this isn't ordinary edema. You have lymphedema. So first they told me I had lymphedema and she put me on a heavy duty water pill, which is not really what you do. But I guess at that point we had to get some fluid off. And so I started researching because she thought that was all that could be done for me. And I found out about going for decongestive therapy. And I said to her, I want to go, I want to get this out of my legs. At that point, it was mainly showing up in my legs and abdomen some. And she said, "Oh, well, that doesn't work." I said, "Well, what do you mean it doesn't work?" "Well, I had somebody that did that and it didn't do anything good for them." I said, "Well, I want to go anyway." So she did write the prescription and I went. And unfortunately, my first experience was really bad. I had somebody that was very new, just out of school, and they didn't know a whole lot about what they were doing. But the one good thing that they did do for me was that they did at that point introduce me to a pump rep. And that was a different pump. But the pump rep looked at me and said, I don't think you just have lymphedema. I think you also have lipedema. So that sent me on a journey to try to find out about lipedema. And the therapy was not overly helpful, I think, because of her being so inexperienced and put me in a garment that never worked. We spent $800 on a garment that I never could wear.
Oh,
So
no.
it was a very frustrating experience, like I said, because I was really accelerating. And then somebody mentioned Dr. Buck. You probably have heard of him. He was a surgeon here in St. Louis who did lipedema surgery. So I scheduled an appointment and I went to see him. And at that time, he said, well, he says, you're going to need at least 3 surgeries, 2 in your legs and 1 in your arms. Because by that point, it was showing up in my arms too. And I had to schedule to go back to therapy to get treatment on my arms. So after that, I found out about Dr. Herbst. And I called, and as I explained, I had a 14-month wait. Well, it was during that time from July or it was early summer of 15, and I didn't see her until September 2016, that things just really accelerated. And I didn't know what to do to stop it. I was still trying to exercise. I had gone to the Y. I had done aquatics classes. I had done, chair yoga, and I tried to do a Fit for Life program, and I did everything I was told to do, except that I couldn't do what everybody else in my group was doing. So the instructor would give me instructions, and then he'd go and work with the rest of the group. And everybody lost weight that summer but me. I may have lost 2 pounds, and I wasn't, meeting whatever goals they set for me. So that was incredibly frustrating, but I kept going. So when I went to Dr. Herbst,
You must have felt when you finally got your appointment, sort of like sliding into home plate, like, oh, this has got to work.
Well, I really did. And I felt really, over time, I really felt abandoned by my insurance company and just people not understanding in general. Because by the time I went to her, Dr. Buck said, I want her report, and we're going to probably do surgery the following month, he said. So October of 16, I was supposed to have surgery. So I did go to Dr. Herbst, and like I said, it was kind of an eye-opening appointment, but she told me that she did want him to do surgery, at least around my knees, so I could continue to walk. And she wanted me to consider bariatric surgery, but that never sat well with me, Brenda. I thought that, that I had heard that didn't really treat the lipedema, and I thought this just had to be able to be done some other way. I actually did go through the whole process of looking into a bariatric surgery program, but I never did see the surgery, because at that point, the Simplified Lipedema Foundation, they started doing more research into the ketogenic diet, and they started a class. So I participated in the first group of people who tried keto for lipedema and lymphedema with Catherine Seo and Leslie Keith. And I was determined not to get the bariatric surgery. And in amongst all this time, I got denied from my insurance for the surgery with Dr. Buck, and he backpedaled. He also told me I'd have to lose, I think it was 85 pounds he wanted me to lose in order for him to do the surgery on me. And
well, you had already done just about every diet there was to do with no change.
Exactly. Plus my insurance company, I had already been through hell with the insurance trying to file appeals, and I lost the first 2 appeals, but on the 3rd appeal, which had gone to the federal authority, they said that they would approve 1 surgery, but that I had to have it within that month. Well, obviously I'm not going to lose 85 pounds in a month, even if I could have a bariatric surgery. So I just said, the heck with all of it. And I went full speed ahead on the ketogenic diet. I worked really hard on that for over a year. Lost 118 pounds.
What?
118 pounds. Now I've been able to keep about 2/3 of that off. I'll be honest, I haven't been able to keep it all off, but I've kept a lot of it off. And I am more mobile than I was. I've got my vibration plate back here. I do my vibration plate. I wear my compression. I use my pump several hours a day. I do several, you know, I'm pretty much home right now, but I do these classes over the phone. I do with the American Council of the Blind. I do chair yoga, and I do some weight resistance classes and a happy hour cardio, they call it. And then the Lipedema Community Tribe, we do stretching with Miranda Esmond White videos 4 or 5 days a week together. So even though I'm at home and I'm not going to the Y, and I terribly miss the pool that really helped me with my fluid, I found alternatives.
Well, first of all, congratulations for A, not giving up. B, we know it's not one size fits all, but that the keto diet worked for you like that, amazing. And that elimination of 118 pounds certainly gave you more mobility so you could try some of these other opportunities. And then we had a happy connection when you found Lymphopress. So when you first heard of Lymphopress, did you think, oh, this is going to be like my other experience, which wasn't a great one?
Well, no, I really didn't think that, because some of the people that, like Patricia Ashton-Cornut, who were using your Optimal Plus, she was having success with it, and the few people that I saw were using it were having success with it, and I was to the point I wasn't having success with my other pump anymore. It did initially help me, but I had all kinds of issues with the Velcro garments and hoses going bad, and not having enough pressure. And so I thought since this pump has been approved for lipedema as well as lymphedema, I really wanted to go for it. And I'm so grateful that it did work out with my insurance, because it was at the end of the year, and my part was, you know, minimal compared to what it could have been. And we have to put out so much money for compression. With me being full body, my insurance does not cover the compression. And so we didn't know how we were going to manage the pump. But one of the biggest things this pump has done for me is it has really helped with my fibrosis. It's really helped to be able to turn up the pressure. I have more lymphatic flow in my legs now, even though I'm late stage, than I've had in years.
That is so good to hear. Do you have the Pantsuit garment?
Yes.
So tell me about, because some people might think, is this going to be hard to use?
Well, because of my difficulty with mobility, it's a little difficult, but my husband does help me. But it's much easier than what I had before. I couldn't do anything with what I had before. But I like that the material is a slick material, and it has really good zippers on it. My garments would fall apart with the other pump. I mean, they never lasted me barely a year, but I'm on my 2nd year, and my garments are great. And you just slide into the pants and zip them up on both sides, and they do have extenders. So, you know, I've been able to remove all but one of the extenders. I did have some extenders when I first started. So, you know I've reduced simply because of being able to take extenders out.
That is awesome. So here's another point that I'm so glad you raised. You know, you get a device and you get better. The thing is, the Lymphopress Optimal Plus and the garments that we provide get better with you. It will adapt to your reduced size and continue to work for you. It's not like, oh, well, can't use this anymore. It's therapy that's easy to live with, and therapy that grows with you, because we're rooting for you to improve. We don't want you to stay the same. And for a lot of people I talk to, they just don't want to get worse. But we want to take it one step further. We don't want you to get worse, but we want you to get better.
Well, I figure I've been bad enough that I need to get better. I mean, if I have to just be the same, that's better than getting worse. But I've been down the road far enough that I want to do all I can to get better.
I'm so glad you've had a great experience with your Lymphopress, and I'm so glad you didn't give up. To close out our interview, what would you say to someone watching this to encourage them? What advice would you give or inspiration would you offer?
Find your tribe. Back when I was going through this, and it was kind of a lonely experience at first. One of the things that helped me to keep going is finding the lipedema related Facebook groups, and then ultimately the lipedema tribe community, because even though it's not a totally rare condition, it's rare enough that you really do feel very much alone in your experience, especially when you're going what seems like going backwards, so to speak. So find your tribe. Be willing to look at alternatives, try things that are hard. You know, I've had to do a lot that's hard, and I tell my husband that this is a full-time job for me. And you know, I don't like it that it's a full-time job, but it's giving me what quality of life I can have. And so I would just say, give it your everything to try to improve your quality of life, and make those connections, and just never give up. Always have hope.
I think that's such a beautiful note to end on. Give it your everything, because you're worth it. Your life is worth it. Carol Moody, I am so honored to finally meet you face to face. I thank you for being a part of our Lymphopress community. And if anybody out there watching would like some assistance, would like to know more about Lymphopress, I'd love to help you. I'm Brenda Viola, bviola at lymphopress.com. And Carol, you know, I will follow up and make sure that people connect with their local representative. I think Doug Wiseman is your local representative.
Yes, yes.
What a great guy. He's awesome, really. And I thank you for joining us. Go ahead.
I so appreciate you on the round tables, and you know, your genuine zest for living and bubbliness, and having a positive spin on things, realistic but positive, and that just helps all of us so much.
Carol, that touches my heart. You know, some people have looked sideways and said, is she for real? And sometimes it is the caffeine, but a lot of times it's simply because I'm grateful to do a job where we really get to help people. And I'm grateful to be alive. We all have struggles, yes. But if we link arms and face them together, every burden is more bearable. So thank you for making my day. Thank you for tuning into this edition of the Lipedema channel. And if you have a story that you'd like to share, we want to share it with the world. Contact me. Let's connect and tell your story too. Have a great day, Carol.
Thank you.